You're listening to the Author Diary Entries podcast. I'm your host, Sagan Morrow, and this is episode number 195. Access the show notes and transcript of this episode at saganmorrow.com/podcast. In this episode, we are going to talk about the problems that generative AI has with consent and plagiarism in creative spaces. This is not a call out, it's a calling in, and please know that all of this is said with love. Also, I am addressing this episode to people who are using generative AI in the creative spaces specifically. I'm gonna go out on a limb here and assume that most of our listeners here on the Author Diary Entries podcast are not using generative AI, in which case, think of this episode as a resource for discussing with others about why you do not use it and why they should care. Please do share this episode because this is a very, very important topic. If, on the other hand, you do use generative AI in the creative spaces, then this episode is an appeal to you. And again, this is a calling in. I do not believe in shaming people, and this is not about shaming anyone. If you feel defensive at any point throughout this episode, that's probably going to be a good indicator that there is something deeper for you to explore. Get curious about any defensiveness you might experience. This is an invitation to go within, to think about your values and your principles, and to get clarity on what matters to you. Personally, I do not use or condone generative AI in honestly any capacity, but I'm going to qualify it in this particular context as discussing generative AI specifically in creative spaces. In other capacities, such as using generative AI to write an email, I still do believe that it can be problematic, but in that case, what concerns me more is the critical thinking and communication skills side of things, the creative abilities side of things as well. It's still a very, very important topic, but it's not what we're focusing on for today. If you want to hear more about the effect that generative AI is having on your critical thinking, your creativity, your communication skills, etc., then please tune in to episode 187, where we discuss that in more depth. I released that episode about a year ago about the ways in which you are hurting yourself when you use AI to quote-unquote write books. Again, it's episode 187 of this Author Diary Entries podcast. I strongly recommend that you go back and give it a listen. Although it is targeted for the writing community, it's also 100% relevant in all creative spaces, including the performing arts, festivals, events, etc. I am seeing some AI pop up in those spaces too, and that is worrisome, which is why I wanted to address the issues with generative AI in creative spaces for today's episode. For instance, I am a burlesque performer. My stage name is Babe Maverick, and I have seen people in the burlesque community and producers of variety shows, people who claim to care deeply about consent, inclusivity, supporting small businesses, local creatives, etc. And they are using generative AI to design posters for their shows or to write the MC notes for their stage introduction. And I'm seeing the same thing for book events and markets, things like that. Here's the thing. If consent matters to you, if you want to support creatives, then please do not use generative AI. I am an author. I have never consented for my work to be put into AI tools. I have never used them. I have no interest in ever using them. But guess what? People have done that anyway. They have done it with my blog post, my blog posts and my novellas, both of which are my intellectual property, regardless if one is available for free and the other costs a few dollars. In fact, about 5 minutes ago, I just received another email from someone telling me that they had input a bunch of information, a bunch of content that I have created into an AI tool. And they were like, you can now use this for your coaching, and it uses your voice to discuss your anti-hustle productivity methods. And I'm sure you could hear it in my voice that I am so upset about it. I'm extremely upset about it. I never consented to that. I did not ask for that. I have no interest in any of my work, whether it's free content online, whether it is paid in my online courses, in my books that I write. I have no interest in any of that being put into AI tools. And yet people are doing this without my consent. And then they send me emails to let me know they're excited about it. They think I should be excited about it. It's so again, as you can hear in my voice, I'm very deeply upset about it. I'm deeply frustrated with it. It's upsetting. Generative AI has a massive consent problem. And I would suspect that nearly every writer and artist that you know has had their work inputted without them knowing about it or consenting to it. If you say that you believe in supporting creatives, but you are using generative AI to create art or to write for you, then you are not living the values you claim to care about. Generative AI is a plagiarism machine. It is stealing from writers and artists. By using it, you are participating in that theft. And remember, it's not just the visual arts that are a problematic use of generative AI. It's also the outsourcing of thinking and writing. It is not okay to steal someone else's words any more than their artwork. And I think that this is an important piece to mention because I know there are some people in the industry, the dance community and that kind of thing, who are vehemently opposed to the use of generative AI on posters and design, but they still use generative AI to write for them. I have never consented to my work being put into AI tools, but they have been. My work has been stolen. Every time you use a generative AI tool, you are making use of work that has been stolen from creatives like me. You are actively participating in an apparently socially acceptable version of theft. You are stealing from people who are already, frankly, being paid very little for their intellectual property. This is a violation of me personally and of my work, as well as countless other creatives and their work. If you care about consent, you should be deeply concerned about this. That also makes it an especially big red flag to me when people in the burlesque community and the adjacent communities are happily willing to use generative AI because it goes against a huge part of what burlesque is. The other aspect of this is with regards to supporting small businesses and creatives. For instance, I have seen show producers be very willing to pay photographers and videographers to document performances at a show, but then that same producer, again, uses AI to write copy for them or to design their posters. If you want to support small businesses, then you need to understand that you are harming those same small businesses by using generative AI. That is their work that you are stealing and repurposing for yourself when you use generative AI. You are stealing from the creatives and small businesses that you profess to want to support. I know that this is a hard pill to swallow, but it's one that you are going to need to accept if you genuinely want to support, not steal from, other creatives. And like I shared about in episode 187 of this Author Diary Entries podcast, you are also doing yourself harm. It's going to negatively affect your own creativity. So sit with the discomfort of blocks when they arise during the creative process. Get peer support if you're struggling. Learn new skills and embrace being a beginner. Be open to and have fun with creating bad art. Collaborate and do trades or ask for in-kind donations from other artists if you don't have the budget to pay them. There are so many other options which everyone was capable of making just before generative AI arrived on the scene just a few years ago, other than plagiarism and participating in non-consensual culture. We still have an opportunity to stop generative AI from destroying arts and culture. It's still new enough that we can put an end to this. Something else I want to mention that's very important. Please do not beat yourself up if you have been using generative AI up to this point. That is not what this is about. It's okay if you didn't realize this before. We all have areas where our actions don't quite align with our values. Just take this as a learning opportunity and an invitation to make a change. It's what you do once you are aware of this that matters. It's what you do at this stage, knowing how harmful your actions have been, that truly speaks to your character. So you need to ask yourself, what do I genuinely value? What are the ways in which I am not living my values? What actions and behaviors am I going to change starting today, right now, to remain true to my values? You are the only one who has control and power over your own actions. Choose wisely. Act based on your values. And if you are unwilling to change, then please be open about that and honest with yourself. Know that you are choosing non-consensual culture and theft of small businesses and creatives. Admit that you do not hold consent or supporting creatives in as high of regard as you previously thought you did. And frankly, please tell the world that. You can't hide it from yourself any longer, so there's no point in lying to the world. Be upfront when you use generative AI to design posters or to write for you. If you believe that it is okay to do that, then you will not have a problem with being very open and honest about it. This is another facet of consent culture, by the way. People should know when you are using generative AI so that they can be fully informed and choose whether or not to participate in or attend your events or to read your work, etc. This brings us to another side that you might be wrestling with, which is this. Let's say you decide to participate as a vendor or a performer in an event, but the organizer ends up using AI to make the poster, and you know it's AI, but you still participate anyway. If you knowingly participate in those events, if you are sharing those posters, you are complicit in plagiarism. You are complicit in participating in a culture that promotes a lack of consent. You are complicit in stealing from small businesses and creatives who are already likely not being compensated fairly for their labor. You are complicit in the blatant theft of those creatives' intellectual property. Only you can decide if that complicity is worth participating in that event. And I get it. That is hard when it's an event that you really want to be at, or when the organizers are really great people besides the fact that they're using generative AI, or when it's the only event that's free for you to participate in, and so on. But you do need to decide whether you are willing to be complicit in those things. It is not always an easy choice. It might require you to have a hard conversation with people, and you might need to challenge yourself to get creative with how to find ways to participate in other events. And you might need to build your resilience to explore the unknowns, etc. That's not always easy. But I believe in you. You are capable of this. I also want you to know that I have been there too. I found out that an event used generative AI in their posters a while back. I had already performed with them twice before, and I had shared their posters, not realizing that they used AI. When someone told me that those posters were AI, my reaction was, oh no, that sucks. And I had to think about it because I didn't want to back out of the show. I really, really like the people who are producing it, and they're doing a lot of really good things with their shows. They're genuinely great people, and their hearts are in the right place. But at the end of the day, I couldn't reconcile myself with it. I wanted to be able to justify it. I did, but I couldn't. I could not reconcile myself with that choice that they had made to use AI. So I backed out. There were a couple of other reasons why I backed out, but that was one of the biggest reasons. If the other reasons hadn't been present, the use of AI still would have been a deal breaker for me. I have since added to my bios in no uncertain terms that I do not agree with AI. And I did share with one of the producers why I was backing out. And I'm not 100% sure because I haven't checked in since then, but from a cursory glance at their social media, it seems as though they might have stopped using AI on their posters since then. So that is great. That's really, really good to see. My point is, it's okay to struggle with this. It's okay to need to take a step back and think it over and to determine where you stand with it. It's okay to want to be able to justify it to yourself. It's okay to have that internal struggle and to need to take that moment, to take a beat, to really understand your own values. What a lot of this comes back to is understanding, defining, and sticking to your principles. This isn't to say that we aren't all going to make mistakes somewhere along the way, and it is not always easy to hold oneself accountable to one's principles. There are always so many reasons for us to not stick to our principles. And I'm a person who believes in the gray. I like to joke that I am a polyamorous pansexual Libra, so of course I don't see the world in black and white. There's nuance involved in just about everything. And that being said, I also think that our principles are one of those areas that do tend to be more black and white. Let me be very clear. This is not to say that people who use generative AI are bad. That is not remotely accurate, and that is not what I mean when I say that there's less gray, more black and white when it comes to our principles. Rather, when I say that our principles are a bit more black and white, I mean that if we pick and choose when we act upon our principles, then they are not really principles. We need to know what we care about that we are unwilling to compromise on. Plagiarism is plagiarism, no matter which way you look at it. If you wouldn't plagiarize a university paper, why is this suddenly okay to do? Was getting caught and potentially being kicked out the only thing that stopped you from plagiarizing in university? I like to think that you have a better moral code than that. Maybe some listeners are going to think it's naive of me to assume that people at large haven't been stealing because of their own internal compass, but I believe we are all better than that. I believe we all have that internal moral compass. I don't want to be disappointed in human beings in general. If you can listen to all of this and all of the reasons why generative AI is harmful, and you can still be inclined to use it, that is disappointing. Because we all have the capacity to be so much better than this. And I know that you can do better. I want you to believe in your capability as much as I believe in your capability. You are worth so much more. You are worth so much better than using a plagiarism machine and participating in non-consensual culture. This is what I would like to invite you to do. Let's acknowledge when we have been complicit. Let's be honest with ourselves about some of the hard choices we have to make. Let's explore what behaviors we are willing to shift and the actions we need to take in order to be aligned with our values and principles. Let's support the creatives in our communities. Let's strive to do better when we know better. I want to reiterate, please do not beat yourself up for the actions that you have taken in the past, for not realizing what a serious issue this is. But now that you do know, what are you going to do about it? Before we wrap up this episode, I would love to ask a favor from you. Do you know people who would enjoy this episode? Do you know people who would benefit from this episode? Sharing is caring, so please do share this episode with someone who would benefit from it. Or Post the link on Instagram or Threads and tag me. My handle is at Sagan Lives. That way, your friends and your entire community can tune in, and we can all learn together. Thank you for helping me out. I appreciate you.